Hello, welcome to myself, Max MacGillivray from Beanstalk. I'm part of our really incisive, is that the right word? Indecisive? No, that's definitely the wrong word. Our informative Beanstalk 20 on 20 interview series. We created this because we wanted to find and talk to some of the really inspirational people within the fresh food sectors on a UK, European, international basis. And I'm loving this because I'm meeting so many inspirational people, whether it be the likes of Anthony Parr from Blue Skies, Barbara Bray, Christine Tacon, some really interesting characters from America. There's an individual that I've known for a fair number of years, and I'm really impressed with something that he's done very recently, and that's why I wanted to get Leon Mundey onto our interview series, and also because we call it the Beanstalk 20 on 20 interview, and it's meant to be 20 minutes with inspirational people, but it's never 20 minutes, it all drifts over to 30-40 minutes. Where Leon, I think, is fascinating is that he's a food and drink scaling up coach, high performance growth coach, and he's a strategic planning consultant. There's so many businesses that I meet with them fresh foods, it's so difficult for them to look beyond the week or even the day, just because of the dynamics of the sector. You're living day by day because of the pressure of no one's making ball bearings, no offense to anyone making ball bearings, but if you're picking pineapples in Ghana or broccoli in Cornwall, the thing's got to be picked, harvested, out the door to a retailer, because in effect it's such a fast moving sector, and because of that there's always a lack of coaching and strategic planning. I feel that the better businesses and the better individuals I meet are those that can actually they've actually created a team of experts around them, which allows them as the business leader or owner to take time out to be more strategic, to be focused on where they are going as an individual, but also their business. And this is what Leon does. So how does he help people? He's obviously ambitious, as you'll find out. He assists food and drink CEOs and leadership teams seeking to deliver high growth and long-term value. So I've always been taught within business that we're all in business for two things: to have fun and to make money. And some people might put it either way. But this is one thing that Leon could definitely do, is help businesses to have fun and not just drive for the money element, but it is important because you need that to reinvest and take the business further forward. And how does he do this? Through business coaching, using a really interesting scaling up methodology and the very best educational tools and techniques. So come on, let's get Leon in and find out a little bit more about him. Leon, come on in, please.
Hi, Max. Thank you for the kind introduction.
No problem. I haven't finished yet. So it's degree educated. You've worked for some really interesting names: Cadbury PLC, Britvic soft drinks, great business Humber VHB that some people now know as Vitacress. Mm-hmm. And most latterly, you've worked with Greenvale AP as the head of marketing, and Greenvale is correct me if I'm wrong here, the parent company's Produce Investments, and you were the marketing director for them. Well, as I sort of intimated in my roll up to this, Leon, where I find you fascinating, how do I when I was in Ghana, hear this one. When I was in Ghana, I met a really interesting guy when we were doing a trip to one of the ports, Accra. And when I was having a conversation with one of our, let's call him a team leader, a local Ghanaian, his name was Rupert. And I said to Rupert, just making small talk, not that you ever need to with anyone in Ghana, I said, Rupert, it's hot today. He said, Max, it's not very hot today. It's only 32 degrees. And I said, back home it gets really cold. I said, well, Max, what do you mean by cold? Well, it could be like 5 degrees, 0 degrees, -5 degrees. Oh, Max, that's terribly cold. What do you do? What do you do to keep warm? Oh, we have Rupert. We have what's called jumpers, pullovers. And I then had to spend the next 10 minutes explaining to him what a jumper was, that you put it on to keep warm. He literally didn't know what a jumper was, and he was astounded to know that I had half a dozen jumpers. And the reason for mentioning that was that Rupert said to me, but Max, I could never wear a jumper. I could never change. Trying to segue that to yourself, where I think you're fascinating is that there are a number of people, not trying to commoditize you, a bit like you within the food sectors, who can't change. They are on this career path for all the right reasons. I'm not criticizing them, all the right reasons of wanting to be with a large company, to have a large corporate role, to have the BMW, the Mercedes in the driveway. You could have done all of that, but you have pulled away from a career of from the corporate world to create your own business with associations as a scaling up coach. Why, Leon? Why have you stepped away from the rat race and looked to do something independent and disruptive? Why?
I mean, good question. Timing wise as well, it probably is up there, isn't it? Having started to do it more or less just as the entire world got switched off. But no, I really love the food and drink sector. I've worked in it all my life since graduating from university. I think there's some really great people in it. I think there's some really great businesses in it. I've been fortunate enough to work in some bigger blue chip businesses. I've worked in very small family businesses, taking businesses from private to public and back again. Wow. So, kind of had the full kind of gamut of the food and drink industry. And I guess I got to a point where I decided, I needed to keep learning. My big thing is learning.
Okay.
Actually, that's kind of key to coaching, being whether you're the coachee or the coach, always wanting to learn. Somebody told me a quote that was, there's no failure in life. You're either winning or you're learning. And I really like that because
that's brilliant.
Because to me, if you're not continually learning, then you're standing still. And I always feel like, you've got to keep learning and keep progressing. And so I've decided that, that path was great and I've learned an awful lot from it. I've seen a lot of different businesses and the ups and downs of how they work and operate. I've always worked in and around strategy, and I've done an awful lot of sort of strategic development work for companies in the last sort of 5-6 years. And strategy is one of those weird things that is kind of grey and it's a bit kind of murky and fluffy, and people don't really know what it is. And people will go away for a day and we'll do a team day and we've got a strategy and you write it down and we do a PowerPoint and that's it, it's done, and it goes in the drawer, and then you come back the next day and you do your day job.
Yep.
And you forget all about strategy because you're super focused on doing your day job.
Yeah.
And so what I was always looking for was this kind of way of creating an operating system, having an operating system that can really make strategy be part of what people do day to day. And the benefit that I've seen of that is that, you exponentially grow your business. And that is fascinating to me. Growing businesses in this sector is a big deal. So if you look at the stats, only 4% of businesses in food and drink ever grow beyond £1 million, which is incredible.
Leon, just say that again. Say that again. I need to capture that. Tell me again.
Of 150,000 food and drink companies in the UK, only 4% get above £1 million in turnover.
Bloody hell!
So that's like incredible. You then extrapolate that further and say, well, how many get over 10 million? It's 1%, and how many get over 50 million? It's less than 0.5%. So for me, there's something there that's blocking food and drink businesses from really kind of taking off and becoming a force for good. And that's really what it's about for me. It's about how do you create a business that can make a meaningful dent in the world and leave something behind that's, that really makes a difference. And that's really what this coaching thing is all about. It's about, for me, it's about learning, working with people that want to learn and want to grow the companies and create something that's meaningful.
So Leon, so is that lack of growth, that lack of ambition, is that because retailers aren't giving those businesses business? Is it because those companies can't get lending from banks for certain bits of kit? What is the reason? What's the fund? Let's not dance around this. What's the fundamental reason why these businesses aren't growing?
Yeah, it's funny because it's quite consistent, to be honest. There's a scaling up report that the government published this week, actually, which really highlights the challenges people face. So as you grow your company, it's one thing setting up a company, and it kind of requires a very specific set of circumstances and inputs. And you can imagine it, can't you? Somebody's got a passion for something, they see an opportunity, you go and get the funding from the family, or you get it from friends or from an angel investor of some sort. You go and set up a business and you start to build it. And you pull in people that and you're all doing everything kind of thing, and that's one set of kind of requirements to get a business up and running off the ground. The next stage to grow and scale a business is where all the complexity comes, and it comes from all sorts of places. The 4 things that really are consistent across all businesses are people, strategy, execution, and cash. So those 4 things in combination are really what people get stuck on when they're growing their business and scaling up. And it's remarkably consistent across companies. So be it in this sector or another sector, you tend to find that there's what's called the valley of death. So actually, when you get to 1 million, people can get up to 1 million in turnover. And then there's this real kind of plateau between that and 10 million, where companies just seem to drift back and forth. And there's an element of, I think there's an element of people playing not to lose at that point. So they've got a little bit of success. The business is up and running. You know, it's doing well. It's doing 7 figures. That's incredible. And there's a bit of protectionism then. There's a little bit of kind of fear of, well, if I do something more and I take new people in, or I take extra finance, or I do anything sort of out of the ordinary, there's a risk that I'll lose that good stuff that I've built up. And so actually what we try and focus people on is, you know, are you playing to win, or are you playing just to not lose? Because actually, if you're playing not to lose, you stay in that trough, that kind of 1 to 10 million. You never really kind of get into the next tier, and then it happens again between 10 and 50, and it happens between 50 and 100, because the infrastructure of your company has to change at those points, and you have to have better people, new people. You have to have more cash. You have to have a really clear plan, and they're the sticky bits that people get hung up on.
And I suppose in this fascinating time where we are at the moment with all the business pressure, I'm just going to use that expression, that quote that's coming up time and time again from Warren Buffett. When the tide goes out, you can really see who is naked, and that's a respect of any graduates listening or watching this. That's a respect of businesses that in a normal economic cycle, they might have issues internally, but when cash is king in businesses, and if you've got no cash because you're not being able to trade, or your trade is being taken away from you, and you've got no reserves, or you've got no strategy, you can really see who's going to suffer. So I suppose even more so, they need people like you to give them that expertise to assist them, because we will get out of our current malaise, recessionary period, and there's going to be some fascinating opportunities. Do you think it's right that people want to have a lifestyle business and hover around this 1 to 10 million, or do you think everyone should be punching on and should be winners, because the winners, they're going to benefit the local economy, it's going to benefit the country as a whole? Is it right to be a winner? Is it wrong to be just a lifestyle business?
I mean, you made the point earlier, didn't you, that business is not going because customers are not giving the opportunities or whatever. But there's businesses that kind of get to that point and kind of then hunker down and want to kind of protect. They're not outwardly looking; they're looking internally all the time. They're constantly in with the day to day. The senior people are working on the business. They're working in the business, not on the business. They're not looking out for what's coming on the horizon, and that's the worst place you want to be, because when you're in that situation, guess what? Somebody over there is just about to come and do something better and faster, cheaper than you are able to do, and because you've not been outwardly focused, you've missed it. And then that's where you kind of get the wind taken out of your sails. And I guess cash. You talk about cash. It is absolutely king. It's the oxygen that fuels any business. If you don't have the cash to grow, then you can't get the growth. But actually, what a lot of businesses will do is they'll jump to the investment house or the venture capitalist or whatever, and give away an awful lot of what they've built up in order to kind of secure the money that they think they need to grow. Actually, what we do is we take a look at the business and say, well, do you know what? There's probably cash sat within your business that, because you're busy doing the day to day, you're not kind of able to kind of see and extract. And actually funding your own growth is really important. There's even an equation on how fast can you afford to grow your business, because obviously you can't do it all unless the cash is there. But taking in somebody else's cash can mean that you're then massively focused on either raising the capital, or you're massively focused on meeting the requirements to cover the loan. Actually taking the time to look at somebody's business and say, what are the levers that you've got, because everyone's got them, but can be tweaked and triggered to try and find some of that growth internally already.
Yeah, and I suppose that the sector that we are in is also fascinating. I've said it too many times on various webinars and broadcasts and interviews, again, I've always been taught that if you could do two things, or if you're involved in two industry sectors in a world war or a world recession, and now a world pandemic, being that if you're in the food sector or the cleaning sector, people have got to eat and people have got to clean. So if you're in either of those sectors, you're in a good spot. So let's just look at the economics of it. Do you think that some of the clients that you've got, or some of the businesses that you see, do you think that that the future is potentially quite rosy for this sector over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's everyone's got to eat, and everyone does eat, and we've seen that through the pandemic, haven't we? It's been the one thing that's kind of kept going. There are challenges within that, because obviously people still have to operate under new restrictions, so costs. Cost control has been a big deal. But I do think it's going to give opportunities for businesses going forward, and the ones that really kind of capitalise on this moment and say, okay, well, look, we've looked at our business. We've looked at, maybe we've picked up new orders, or, maybe we've pivoted slightly into a new sector, which has been incredible this year. Actually, the way that businesses have managed to kind of take what they do and apply it in a slightly different way to help keep product available. That's been incredible. And that is part of the reason why I like this sector so much, because I think it's quite ingenious. It does because you have to think quickly. But I think there are opportunities for companies. I think within the sector, those that are really clear about kind of their big goals, and then have a plan that they're going to work a way to execute on, and have the folk and the capital around them to do that. Those are the guys that, when this happens, let's hope it never does, were it to happen in the future, they're going to be in such a strong place, because they've really built up their kind of arsenal. Yeah,
and again, so when are we filming this? We're end of November 2020. When we went into UK lockdown in March, here comes the word pivot. It's fascinating to see how a number of growers pivoted in respect of they were losing the likes of food service business, and they went to box schemes, and the box schemes were very quickly picked up by the consumers, because the consumers wanted that food, but also wanted to help those growers. And the first flush of boxes that went out were fantastic, and they're a bit pricey, but it was really good produce. The feeling I then got pretty quickly on the back of that was that as there was more demand, the boxes got lesser in terms of quality and volume. And as we came out of UK lockdown, the Joe Public reverted to type and just went back to the retailer, either into store or through store deliveries. And so then the poor old growers then left with this new operation that they created for box schemes, but they're now not getting any traction. And you could also, there's a whole piece to talk about with the whole Pick for Britain campaign. It comes back to what I said in my sort of waffly introduction, and what you identified in a more articulate form. That the issue, I suppose, within the food and drink sector is that it is so rapid and reactive. If an MD has got to quickly, bad example, drive a van or help pack on the packing line, they have to keep the business moving. But for people to have a strategic foresight as to where the potential of the business is going to go in the long term, blimey, Leon, they need some advice. And well, that comes over to you. So with your again, your background is fascinating, because as you say, you've worked for small family businesses all the way through to some pretty PLCs like Cadbury, Britvic, and Greenvale Produce Investments. If you had companies coming to you and they're roughly sound, but they were just worried about what's going to happen over the next six months because they've lost, say, food services businesses, how would you advise them? How would you look to create a strategy for them so that they're going to be really robust and really create a success out of this negative over the next 2-3 years? How would you do that?
So, I mean, the big thing really is about kind of freeing up management time, and that's, again, what you find is that the businesses that have hunkered down, they've had to hunker down, and people are kind of looking inward and all the rest of it, and they're working away. But actually, if you can free up people's time at a senior level to kind of be looking at where the business can grow and develop, then actually, and you can let the business manage itself, then that makes a massive difference. And so one of the big sort of outputs of what we try to do is that you free up 80% of the senior leadership's time to take them away from
Wow.
working in the business and to working on the business. And that's really about habits, and it's about creating a set of routines that the business can use and can integrate over time, so that the business executes against its strategic objectives. So I said right at the start, people will kind of go away and do the strategic thing, then come back and they just put their head down and they kind of do their day-to-day job. Actually, a lot of that is there's two reasons. One is because actually the communication of what the strategic direction isn't great. And actually, if you're in a business and you think that, well, we've got strategy nailed down, it's not a problem, we don't need it, just go and ask somebody that works in the business on the line, packing something or picking something, just explain to me really, in one sentence, what's our strategy? Yeah, because 9 times out of 10, nobody will know.
Totally agree.
And that's a massive challenge for businesses, because you're missing all of that intellectual brain power that all of those people, and that's, again, one of the things that, I see the potential in businesses, particularly in this sector, just not making the most of what they've got available already, which is a bunch of people who, if you just empower them to kind of have space to think and bring ideas, they'll fix it for you. They're really competent people.
Yeah.
So having strategic direction that everyone can understand, everybody in your business should be able to say to anyone that comes and visits it, that's what we're about. It's like the guy that turned around at NASA and said, who's sweeping the floors, what's your purpose? I'm putting a man on the moon. It's
fantastic.
If you're in the business, it's because you're trying to achieve this one thing, and actually having a really clear purpose for your business is important. Having a set of core values that everyone knows, and it's not just platitude on the wall, that it's lived and breathed. And that a lot of that might be about kind of developing people and helping people to create something better. Having a big vision for the business, and it might be something that you never achieve. It's a guy called Jim Collins who wrote this book. I always love grabbing this book because it's such a fantastic book.
Leo, just hold it up again so I can spotlight you. Okay.
So Jim Collins, Good to Great, he's written a bunch of good, really incredible books. This one in particular focuses on research that they've done into companies that managed to outperform their markets over a 15-year period. It's very statistically well organized, so it's not fluffy, which I love because I like sort of data. And one of the big differences between companies that go from good to great is that they have what he called a big, hairy, audacious goal, or a BHAG. Some people might have heard of it. And it's to say, we might not ever get there. We might not put the man on the moon, but what, we're going to aim for it. And we're going to kind of work our way towards that in our day to day. And it's not going to be ethereal. It's going to be something that everyone is aware of, and everyone is every single day making some steps towards it. And so that's the start point for me, is saying to people, okay, what's the business's purpose? What are we trying to achieve? Does everyone understand that? Does everyone know where we're trying to go? And then you build around that.
Yeah, well done. And just to emphasise that point that Leon very eloquently said, this is one for sort of students, perhaps more so. I remember picking number 12 years ago, going down to Kent to see a client, and when I was parking, I got a bit lost, and forklift driver helped me out, and he's got a chatty individual and said, "Oh, how long have you been here, and how's the business going?" And this business was £150 million turnover at the time, part of an international group, won't name them. And he said, "Oh, it won't be here in 2 years' time." I said, "Well, bloody hell, why'd you say that?" I said, "We've got no leadership, got no strategy. I got a forklift driver telling me this." I thought, "Well, how's that all work?" Go up, see the MD. The MD rattled off the normal stuff about, £150 million turnover. We're dealing with these retailers, that retailer. Well, the one thing I did find with that particular MD, which I do with other senior level individuals, he was quite commercially lonely is the wrong word, uninformed. I found that I spent the hour I was with him just telling him what was going on in the trade with retailers and other competitors and other international groups, and it was almost like he wasn't getting that information because he was sat in this office with his door locked most of the time. So on the way out, saw the forklift driver and said, "Well, the MD seems quite impressive about the quite resilient about the future." He said, "No, just watch and wait." 2 years later, they pulled out of the UK market because they weren't making any money. Why weren't they making any money? Because they had no strategy. So it just comes back to the same point again. You can have a massive business such as that. Do not ever overlook, and Leon, you know I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to grads on this one, do not ever overlook anyone in the business. There's so many people within a business know far more as to what's going on within that business rather than the MD. And it comes back to Leon's point. If you can empower a team to really take something. So Leon, just on that side, I suppose just for graduates, what sort of businesses do you know within food and drink have got this nailed, have got the growth, the strategy, the planning nailed, and have made a success of it? Can I just start with the obvious one that comes straight to mind? Someone like Innocent Drinks has been a fantastic. But go on, you run with that thread. It'd be fascinating to see what you think.
They are, and I'll tell you the best way to do it. One of the easiest ways to do it: go on their website, and if you can find their core values or a purpose on their company website, you're onto something, because you've got a business that's thought about what their purpose is. There's a statistical piece of work that's been done that says people who work for businesses that have really clearly defined purpose will give you 40% additional discretionary effort than businesses that don't. Because the money is one thing, people go to work for money, and people set up companies for money to a degree, but actually it's really that stuff just comes when you get the other bits right, in terms of having a reason for your company existing. And so certainly for the likes of graduates and whatnot, if you're looking for somewhere to go, it's a really nice thing to do. You look on the likes of Innocent, a lot of the smaller new kind of challenger brands and businesses that are out in the market, they've got it. There's a really great beer brand on the market all over their website. So you just know straight away, okay, these folks have thought about the reason for their business beyond it being about generating cash. And that's really a great telltale sign.
And I don't know if you're getting it with your kids. I am as well. That they are talking about the environmental aspect, the sustainability aspect, that they only want to. My kids don't want to buy anything from Amazon because they think it's the devil, because they think it is doing bad in the world. I had a conversation with one of the large 4 banks last week, and they were stating how they're about to launch a fund. It's going to be $100 billion US that they're looking to drive into the food sectors within UK, Europe, and America. That £100 billion fund is to fund sustainability projects within the food and drink sector. You have the likes of businesses that are very attracted to become B Corporation, and again, students, if you're not aware of that, just thump in B Corp, and their raison d'etre is to create an alliance of businesses that aren't just chasing shareholder value, that are looking to do good in the world. So do you think that also comes to you, Leon, that you can assist those companies, that there is this sea change around the whole sustainability element, the diversification? Just I need to get this one out of my head as well. Legal in General, one of the biggest investment pension funds in the UK, they've stated to the top 100 companies that they invest in, that if those companies don't have a diversified board by the end of 2022, they'll be pulling the investment from those companies. So they're driving behavioral change. So in some ways, Leon, is the market not running towards you because people do want to change, but they don't know how to, and then that's why they can lean on someone like you to create that magic.
It's massive, isn't it? All of that kind of change in focus is definitely happening at the moment, and I think. It really comes back to the business owner and the people that run the business really taking the time to think about it from their perspective, because you can't, there's the whole greenwash kind of thing. You just slap a badge on your business and suddenly we're green. Nobody will buy into it because it won't be real. What you really need to do is with that team of people, with your leadership team, really kind of get into the nub of, what is it? Why is it that you do what you do? And it's a really frustrating thing that I love doing with people, actually, because it kind of gets to it in the end. But it's a 5 whys question. So what do you do? Okay, well, we pack produce. Okay, why do you do that? Well, because we supply retailers. Yeah, well, why is that important? Because if we didn't do that, we wouldn't make any money. Well, why is that important? Well, if we didn't make any money, we wouldn't have jobs. Well, why is that important? Well, if I did that, I couldn't feed my kids. Well, why is that important? And you kind of get there in the end, and you kind of get all the way to, like, to save the world, and then you come up a level, and it's that bit there. That's your purpose. That's why you do what you do. And getting the team to really buy into that. And again, there's another great book, Patrick Lencioni, 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. A lot of folks would have read that, heard about it. You know, if you can build a leadership team that is really rooted in, deep levels of trust and commitment to what you're trying to do, then everything else kind of follows, and you can really build on that. If you haven't got that, if people haven't had the opportunity to voice their opinion and have it heard, and either have it agreed with or have it disagreed with, but at least they've had the chance to express it, you'll get them to buy into what you're trying to do. And what happens so often in businesses, I'm sure you've seen it, is that people will say, oh, yeah, they're our values, and that's our purpose, or that's our mission statement. I hate mission statements. That's our mission statement. Okay, give me an example of when you've lived any of those. Give me an example of that value when you've done it. Give me an example of when you've delivered against that mission statement. And it's like blank faces. Well, HR came up with that, you know. Well, then it's not a purpose, is it? It's an exercise you've gone through. So really, you've got to get people to kind of take accountability for it. And once you've done that, and you've created that kind of bedrock, that stuff doesn't shift. Values might change a little bit, particularly if your business is scaling and is growing and is young, and it'll take a little while. And the things that you think are a core value, you might find, you can't really evidence over time. The things that you can evidence, you can say, oh, actually, we put down, care for the community is one of our core values. And last month we did like 3 days of charity work for a local group. Great, that's a core value. You can evidence it. But there might be other things that you just put there because, and people, it's like, I won't use the word, but it's BS bingo, isn't it? If you Google, core value, company values, you'll get honesty, integrity. You'll get the list. You get the standard list that most companies have that don't really mean anything, and nobody buys into them. So of course, it doesn't grow. Yeah,
is there a bit of a link here with politicians? I was listening to I'm loving Times Radio at the moment, and they had our current health secretary this morning on, and he was just batting back all the questions, saying it's not my place to comment on that, not my place to comment on that. They then had a Labour Party MP coming on attacking this health secretary, but when the very good interviewer then asked the Labour MP to comment on a Jeremy Corbyn situation, he said, "Oh, it's not my place to do so. We're waiting for a report." And so they did with politicians. They just never want to step over a line. And the correlation with that with business is that they have a lot of people feel the need to have the mission statement and reception when you come in, but they're not. Again, you don't like the mission statement element. I don't like the expression "live in the valleys," because you've got to be authentic if you want to do good in the world, and you can do with a business, especially if you're employing people, by taking them on the journey that Leon you would take them with. Oh my God, that business, as the examples that you've been involved with, can have such a fantastic time. You spend so much time at work in business, and to be able to do good and to feed people. My God, look at all the companies that you've been with. You've been feeding people the most amazing fresh produce. And again, going back to that bit we talked about, world recession and pandemic, people have got to eat and clean. And if you can help people be healthy and enjoy doing that, and be with a business that's growing rapidly and profitably and doing good. So do you think when we get out of this whole COVID malarkey, Leon, that we will see food businesses be more, I hate the word respected, but more well thought of, because they are doing good, and these businesses will get better internally and externally because of the likes of the advice that you're giving them? Will we see better businesses?
I think businesses that kind of really get to grips with this now, there are opportunities. It's been difficult for a lot of businesses. Anyone that's been facing into food service, been really, really difficult for folk. But actually coming out of this, there'll be businesses there'll be those businesses that need to really have another think about what the strategic direction is. Have you got the right people in the right seats doing the right things? Yeah. Getting the right people makes your job really easy. If you haven't got the right people, really difficult. And now, great opportunity, because there are a bunch of people out there that ordinarily wouldn't be available in the market. They are. So how can you bring those folk into your business? Taking businesses that have done well and that have grown exponentially, but maybe now need to think, okay, well, actually, we've scaled a little bit here, and we like that, but is the cash going to sustain? And how can we make this really kind of efficient and make sure it lasts and doesn't drop away again once the demand kind of goes off? I think again, sort of coming back to my personal mission, and we sort of talked about it at the start. I love that people eat well and can eat well in this country and around the world, and this sector helps that massively. I spent the first 5, 6, 7 years of my career working in a business or in businesses that didn't help that, and I'm kind of anti that now. So for me, being able to go to these businesses, be it in ag food, be it in produce, be it in ag tech, because again, goals are all the same. They're just trying to get people better access to fresh food all over the world. The more of that we can do, for me, it's part of my personal purpose is to really help grow those businesses, help them sustain, help them not be 4% that get over $1 million. It's incredible. 4%, what an opportunity. You're 4%. Imagine if it was 20% or 30% of businesses in this sector that were able to scale, then the sort of end product of all of that for me is that means loads more people eating loads more good food. Yeah. And that's really what I'd love to do.
Brilliant. Leon, just before we wrap up, just to sort of turn it on its head, we sort of aimed this conversation at senior business leaders. If we've got graduates or my forklift driver or middle management people who think that the business that they're in is amazing, but it could do more, if the senior management team, if the owner, if the MD could be persuaded to do so, what would your advice be for those individuals in the business who want to see change with this great business, but they're having problems persuading the senior management team? How would you go around that one, please? How would you advise those people to create that change, that behavioural change within the senior management team? How?
I mean, I think ask the simple questions. What's our purpose? What are we doing? If you don't know, go and ask your line manager. Do you know what it is? If you don't know what it is, can we get somebody from the business to come and explain it to us?
Brilliant.
Highlight the fact that may be, it may be cultural. It may be that there's a bunch of stuff that's been created, but that it's not filtered through because, some people don't know. People are super, super busy, and the biggest problem is, again, it's a lovely quote, but the biggest problem with communication is that you believe that it's been understood, it's been delivered. It takes something like, I think it takes 7 times of somebody saying something for you to completely understand what they've said. And so really, as a CEO or a leader in a business, your job is just to repeat yourself. It's really easy. You create all of this stuff and you spend the rest of your life telling people it over and over and over again until they've eventually got it. And it might be that maybe that business has got that and it just hasn't gone through that process with its people of explaining it over and over and over again. Or it might be, guess what, actually, if you ask them to tell you the purpose, or you ask them to tell you, examples of when the values have happened, they just might not be able to. You might catch them out. And that might just open up a conversation as to kind of where the business could go. And just, again, if you can encourage your business to use your brain power, it's everyone's got it within them to kind of come up with something fantastic. And it's not about where you're at now, it's about where you end up. So you might be driving a forklift or whatever now, but you just might have that great idea. Nike, I love the example of Nike is fantastic. Bill Bowerman and Phil Knight set up Nike. Bill was Phil's running coach. So in terms of, for me, does coaching work in business? There you go. There you go. Bill Knight's worth $32 billion right now, today. So, don't try and do it on your own. Whatever the challenges are in life, don't try and deal with them on your own. Go outside, get some help, get some people to come in and talk about it, because your outcome will be much, much better.
I cannot summarize that any better. Everyone, I think this has been fascinating speaking to Leon. So just to emphasize that point again, that Leon and both of I have seen, there's so many businesses, if they could let go to grow, if they could spend more time thinking on where the business is going to go, and using the likes of Leon's obvious expertise to do that, you will be in a far better place. Yourself, physically and emotionally, your business will be in a far better place, and your team will be in a far better place. And Leon, I shouldn't have to apologise, but sorry for throwing that last question at you, because I think it's fascinating, because we spend a lot of time talking about the senior management team, but as per our forklift examples, there's so many really good people within a business, and sometimes they get overlooked when actually they could be the answer. And it is a team effort to get there. So on the various links, we'll have Leon's website and LinkedIn profile. I've known Leon for years, and I think he's so brave, but he's not, because you can just see him. He's got the kahunas to do this. He's going to make this, going to be so successful in the UK and Europe and internationally, especially with the network that you'll see that he's got. So if you want to assist your business, or you want your senior management team to be assisted, introduce them to Leon. Introduce them. Leon, thank you very much.
Thank you, Max. Really appreciate your time.
Really enjoyed that. You look after yourself, and we did mention the fact that you're a Norwich football supporter. We must just say that's your only fault. You're amazing. You're perfect. But you're the one supporter of Norwich. And Norwich are third in the league, so they must be doing something right.
Great stuff. Thanks,
excellent.
Max.
Well done, Leon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.